we'll start laying down any surface of your body that is comfortable, any position that is comfortable. If you want to take a moment to find yourself on the mat, please do so. You could move around a little bit, or take a stretch, or take a yawn, or maybe just drop yourself there and give yourself some peace and quiet and stillness. Whatever it is, maybe depends on the time of the day, maybe depends on the day itself, or whatever is going on in your body, in your mind, in your whole being right now. And at some point, just find your way to a comfortable position. If comfortable enough, you can have your legs straight wherever you are, if you're on your back or if you're on your front, so that you have a lot of surface of your body that's in contact with the floor. That's essentially what I care about. What exact shape or position doesn't really matter. And you could take a moment to just notice what is your relationship to the ground, and in particular the places and the parts of your body that are touching the ground. Notice if they have an ability to release into the floor, to soften in relationship to the floor, or if they have a tendency or a desire to push back, to jump up, to kind of resist the call of gravity. And your relationship to the ground is gonna tell us something about the relationship with the floor, right? Sometimes being in contact with a certain surface elicit a certain response in the body, but it might also tell us something about our relationship to gravity. How does it feel to look for a sense of gravity, to perhaps release our weight into gravity? What does it feel like to release or to surrender? What does it feel like to look for the sense of our own weight? There are many reasons why this might be comfortable or uncomfortable. It might also change again depending on the day of the week. See what it is today. See what this surface of your body has to tell you about your relationship to gravity. Is the surface of your body that in relationship to the ground able to release into the ground and able to receive the weight of all of the surfaces that are above it? Maybe spreading like a plate to receive the layers of cells, muscles, bones that are above it. And can the surfaces of your body that are not in relationship to the ground, can they find a sense of release into the surfaces below, into whatever is underneath? And I invite you to bring some attention to this idea of above and below, to what is above and what is below. Not so much in a mystical, metaphysics sense, though that too if you want, but in a physical sense. What is the quality of the layers and surfaces that are above, and what is the quality of the surfaces that are below? And then whenever you're ready, as smoothly as possible, you might need to wiggle a little on your mat depending on how much space you have. We'll take 1/4 roll and come to another surface of your body. If you were on your back, you'll be on one of your sides. If you were on your front, you'll be on one of your sides. If you're on your sides, you might be on your front or back. And just do the same process here. Individuate the surfaces below, the surfaces that are in contact with the ground, but perhaps there are also surfaces of you that are in contact with other parts of you. Notice how they relate to the ground. Notice how they relate to gravity. Notice what it feels like to you, your body, your mind, your emotional body, to surrender and release your weight in this position, on this other surface, and then the above surfaces. Can they, releasing the support of the surfaces below? And perhaps even, how does your breath affect all of this, if it does? Take a couple more breaths here. Taking all the mental notes that you might like to take about this position, this surface. And then as easily as possible, almost lazily, take another quarter roll and come to another surface of your body. How does this surface relate to gravity and to the ground? You have experienced the opposite position, probably, if you're just rolling. Your first position was the opposite of this one. How does that affect your ability to organize in relationship to gravity in this position? What does it mean and what does it feel like to switch the above and the below? Can you switch what's above and what's below, or what was above that is now below? And take a couple more breaths on this surface, and then whenever you're ready at your own pace, as lazily as possible, take one more quarter roll and come onto the fourth surface, the fourth side of your body, and take a moment there to process. Switching above and below again. Identifying what is above and what is below, and leaning into what's below, leaning and orienting towards the ground, into gravity for today, as much as possible, as much as comfortably interesting. What does it feel like, and what does it mean to switch what was below and what was above? Yielding your weight into the ground and noticing what it means and what it feels like to you to wield weight, to experience weight, your own weight, the weight of your limbs, the weight of your organs, the weight of your thoughts. And then at your own rhythm, you can take a moment if you would like to revisit your first surface, whatever that was, for you to go ahead and do that. And at some point, we will meet on one side, either your right side or your left side. I'm on my right side, just so I can face the camera. And you can do whatever you want with your bottom arm, right? Maybe you put it under your head to support the neck. Maybe you have it in front of you. Doesn't really matter right now. What I would like you to see is if you can find the differentiation now between yielding your weight and letting that yielding, that releasing of weight, the letting go of weight, turn gradually into a little bit of a push from your underneath side. So all of those surfaces of you that are in contact with the ground might start by becoming a little bit wider, a little bit heavier, and then that weight will turn into a gentle push. And I would like you to notice where that push travels. Because when we push something, that thing should move, right? If I'm pushing a box or I'm pushing a door, the box will move, right? But if I push something like the ground that's not going to move, that force that I'm generating is going to travel and translate somewhere else into my own body. So notice where the push goes, and if you feel some clarity in the pathways and some clarity in that movement, allow the push into the ground to create a movement above. So the engagement is below. The engagement is in the below layers, the parts of your body that are underneath. But the movement might become manifest above. Arm, leg, head. And then as you release the push, your above layers will also soften and fall. And you can try the difference if you want. Just kind of picking up your top arm and top leg, picking up your head, feeling an engagement of the upper or the above layer of muscles of the body, which is a great thing to do. And then see what happens if you do it from below, from your underneath layer pressing down. It might feel different, it might look a little different, it might be smaller, maybe it's a smaller movement. Just try it out, see if you can find your pathways from the places that can push into the ground into the places that can move. And then eventually when you release the next time, you can take a moment to roll through center, either on your front or back, your choice. Take a second to notice the difference in tone between your two sides. Contact and touch can be very good tools to create tone in the tissues, so that the side of your body that was pushing the ground might feel like it's a little bit more active, a little bit more present. It's not just the muscles because they're pushing, but it's also the tone of your skin that has been awakened through touch. And whenever you're ready, you roll over onto your other side and do the same thing. Start by yielding your weight. See what that feels like. Notice where there is resistance to that even. The head is often a little bit hard. If you're wearing glasses like me, it might be even a little bit harder because they get in the way and you don't want to smash them. And then see if that push can, if that yielding, can turn a little bit into a push. So from the surfaces of your body that are already touching the ground, they're going to get heavier, they're going to get a little bit more active, they're going to push down, and you're going to follow that force into your body and into some other part of your body. You can start small. Maybe at the beginning there's no movement. You just kind of trace the pathway from the ground, from the side of your body that is touching the ground, across the tissues of your body into somewhere else, and then maybe movement is created And if you need to check the difference between the two approaches, please go ahead and do so. You can try to release everything down, find a sense of yielding and softening and surrendering, and then try to simply lift the upper part of your body, the above part of your body, arm, leg, head, right? Engaging the muscles very clearly along the above side of your body, which is again an excellent thing to do and to practice, and then try from below. And this is kind of what we're going to try to work on today, this idea of finding the movement from below, so that there is a sense of yielding that turns into pushing, and a sense of support and stability that turns into movement. And then whenever you're ready, whenever you've softened everything out enough, you can leave your hands if you want, help yourself up, and come to find a comfortable seat. Any kind of seat, and if you want to sit on props, as always, feel free to do so. Just make your way to a comfortable seat where you can release your hands somewhere, perhaps on your legs, perhaps beside you, and layer yourself up. See if you can find the below layers, the underneath layers of yourself. There's probably your sit bones, right, and your glutes somewhere if you're seated. If you're kneeling, your shins might be at the bottom, right, at the very, very bottom, and then you kind of layer yourself up. And in particular, see if you can get to the spine and find a way to layer your awareness of your spine from below all the way up to the top of your head, such that there isn't a lot of muscular engagement needed to hold your head up. But you can kind of release the weight of your torso from head to sit bones, into your sit bones, and from your sit bones into the ground. And even just the yielding, even just your weight, even without pushing, weight itself is a force that will create a rebounding action from the ground into your body, so that you can sit tall just by sensing your spine, and just by sensing your weight moving down along your spine, and the rebound force of the ground pushing back up into your spine, into your head. Take a moment here and add the three-dimensionality of the breath as you breathe in and out, inflating and deflating, front, side, and back, all around this sort of plumb line that we're creating with gravity. And allow the plumb line to be dynamic as we add the movement of the breath. Every time there is movement, our balance will shift to change. And it should be so, right? So even if it's something subtle and small as breath, you can allow it to change your experience of verticality, of gravity, of plumb line. Whenever you're ready, make your way over onto your hands and your knees. Take a moment to wiggle yourself out. Take a moment to organize your hands under your shoulders, your knees under your hips, and then start maybe with some cats and some cows. You can take a few moments to just move around. Sometimes it is very good to take a little brain break from a specific idea, and we have been working on a very specific idea for a while, so if it feels like you need a little brain break, please take it. You can just wiggle around, crack your bones, stretch your muscles, find your wrists, all of that stuff. Check in with the physical aspect of yourself and see if you can check in a way that is curious and not judgmental, and in a way that has as little expectations as possible, so you're really just kind of being there with yourself. stretch what needs to be stretched, access what needs to be accessed. And then at some point, as you keep moving, perhaps see if you can add a little bit of a push from your hands or from your knees and shins, or a sense of yielding. And you could maybe circle over your hands. Right? It says you shift your weight on your hands, your body will shift. You can push into your hands and see how that translates into your spine. You can stop pushing and see how that translates. You can shift back, tucking the toes under, walking your hands back until you come onto your feet, onto your toes, and see how you can unravel your spine. And if and how there is a way that your feet affect, and the push of your feet especially affects the pelvis. I'm sorry, I think there is a truck outside. Hope it's not too loud. I'm gonna put it. I hear it. Should probably put it for you. But. And then whenever you're ready from here, I'm gonna make our way into a downward facing dog, tucking the toes under, lifting the hips all the way up and back. You can take a moment to pedal on the feet. I am going to close the window. I have no idea what is happening up there. You can take a moment to pedal out the feet. You can take a moment to wiggle yourself around again. And even here, now it might be a little bit easier to add the push of the feet and see how the feet can help you create, or the push of the feet starting from a sense of yielding your weight down into your legs and into your feet and into the ground can help you organize the legs, and then up above the pelvis. There's a way, I think, that pushing a little bit, and if that means that your heels lift up off the floor slightly, that's fine with me. That can help you create maybe a little bit more of forward tilting the pelvis, to free up your tailbone, to reach up towards the seating. And then if your hands add a little bit of a push and the ground is not moving and your head is not moving forward, you might shift your weight a little bit further back towards your leg, maybe creating a little bit more of a stretch into the calves or into the hamstrings, depending where you hold more tightness. And then slide your way forward into a plank position. And we're going to hold plank for a little while. And what I'd like you to do is just see if you can really think about just your hands and your feet. There's obviously, a lot of other things that are happening in plank. Your core is working, your legs are working, all of these muscles are getting activated. It's a super active pose. See if you can think about the weight that you're leaning into your hands and the weight that you're leaning into your legs, and just let yourself stack up from there. My arm is getting a little shaky. My breath is getting a little shaky, and just see what it feels like for you to be here today, or stay maybe a little bit longer. And then whenever you're ready, take your knees down to the floor and just sit back into child's pose, rest for a moment. And if you need to roll out your wrists or shake off your hands, this would be a good moment to do that, or maybe your neck. There might be a little bit of weight bearing. There will be some weight bearing on the hands, so check in with your wrists, and every time you need to take a break, take a break. Some of the stuff that we'll do, you'll be able to do on fists, or you'll be able to do on your elbows. If that's the best option for you, that's totally fine. So just feel free to play with it. Whenever you're ready, we're gonna make our way back onto our hands and knees. From hands and knees, we'll make our way back into downward facing dog. And from downward facing dog, I would like you to shift the weight onto your left foot, right? Enough that your right leg will feel like it can get a little floppy, right? And then push with your left foot into the ground enough that you can help your right leg float up. I don't really care if you open your hips or if you have your hips squared, if your leg is straight or bent, you can choose that, right? can you find the underneath layer of pushing that can help you free up the leg to float up off the floor? Take one more breath wherever you are, and then on an exhale, you might bend your right knee and kind of let it swing into gravity to come forward and step the foot between your hands. Take your back knee down, and you can walk your hands onto your front thigh for a moment. Push down on your foot, right foot that is, the front foot, and push down a little bit on your hands and see where that push goes. You might push your pelvis a little bit further back and your back a little bit further back or something of that sort. Your back foot can push down to it. You might push your hips forward and get a little bit more stretch through the front of the left hip. And then see what happens if you release a little bit of that push and let your pelvis sink. Right? So now you don't have as much of that rebounding force that was coming from pushing your feet into the ground, and the sinking of the pelvis might create a little bit more of a sense of collapsing into the lower back. If that's okay with your back, that's not bad. It's fine. If there is pain, see what happens if you push into the feet and let that push travel through the body, perhaps to create some support through the lower back, perhaps to create some freedom in the arms so that your arms might lift up towards the ceiling, and if you like to do a little hooking of the thumbs or hooking of the fingers to add a little wiggle for the shoulders, feel free to do so. How do you use your feet in relationship to the ground to help you affect the effect of gravity on your lower back, for example, or it could be on your hip sockets, or it could be on your neck. And then whenever you're ready, take your hands back down to the floor. Tuck your back toes under if you have them untucked, and straighten both legs. For a moment, your front leg might not get all the way straight. And see what happens if you push with that right foot a little bit more. It might actually start to rotate your hips towards the left a little bit, right? And if you don't push, it might be a little bit easier to turn your pelvis in. You can, of course, also push your leg and let the push travel elsewhere. Just see what happens if you add a little bit of push and then release a little bit of push. And then whenever you're ready, you step back into downward facing dog. From downward facing dog, push with the feet to find a roll forward into plank pose. Take your knees down to the floor for this first one, even if you have a comfortable chaturanga, so that we can just really go slow down the descent in such a way that we kind of keep playing with that weight of the hands. And see how little can your arms work as you do a push-up. And then release your belly down, coming to a cobra. High, low, middle, baby, whatever, teenager, doesn't matter, whatever you need to do. We'll make our way back up to downward facing dog to take the second leg. So from here, shift your weight onto your right foot. Sometimes I shorten my stance a little bit. It feels a little bit easier for me to access the feet. And your left leg might get a little bit lighter just from this shift of weight. And then your left foot is gonna push down into the ground, so much so that it might help you lift your left leg up. I don't care what that left leg looks like. It might be that it's bent, it might be that it's straight. You might have lifted up into a parallel hips position. For me, I know it tends to rotate my hips and lift the leg. That kind of the pathway, the pattern that seems to be a little bit more organic to my body. So that's where I end up being, but we might be a little bit different. Just see what your pathway is, and then know that you can change it. You can guide that force that you're creating by pushing. You can guide it wherever you want. And then bend your left knee, let it swing into gravity a little bit to help you step forward. Foot between the hands, take your back knee down to the floor, super, super slowly. We're gonna pick up the pace in a moment. Just bear with it for a second longer. You're gonna take your hands to your front thigh and see if you can push down with the feet and push down with the hands. Doesn't have to be a crazy push, just enough that it affects the organization of your pelvis, the organization of your spine, the organization of your shoulders, and so on and so forth. And then let all of those pushes soften and let your pelvis sink.
however much you want or can sink. And then notice once your pelvis is done sinking, your lower back might start sinking a little bit. Maybe if you're like me, you start to lean the shoulders back a little bit because my lower back is quite flexible. You might be in a different organization. Depends also on the position of your feet and so on and so forth. If there's discomfort either in the hip sockets or the lower back, is there any way that you can use the push of the feet to help you affect your lower back, to help you affect your hips? So you're not pulling yourself up, but you're still yielding yourself into the ground and receiving the support of the ground rather than reaching for help somewhere up there or out there. You might even be able to let your arms float up comfortably next to the ears. You might want to interlace the fingers. You might want to take a bigger back bend if you want, feeling the weight also of the head, the back of the head, the back of the ribs, the back of the arms. And then whenever you've had enough, you'll take your hands back down to the floor, framing your front foot. Tuck your back toes under if they're not, and straighten both legs. However much your front leg straightens doesn't really matter. It might not be a lot. You might also have blocks under your hands. And then see what happens if you push your left foot down, maybe a little bit forward. For some of us, it might push that left hip straight back. This is what we kind of want to do when we do pyramid and that sort of shapes in yoga, right? But it could also create a little bit of a rotation of the pelvis towards the right, which is more what we want to do when we're doing, let's say, triangle pose. Right? It's using that front leg to help support the opening of the hip. And then whenever you're ready, plant your hands down, step back into a downward facing dog. Another really slow vinyasa. You can take it forward to plank pose. You can take your knees down if you want or not. And just see how little muscular engagement can you use to lower down slowly, maintaining the integrity of your shape, of your spine, of your shoulders. And release it all the way down. At some point, come forward into a cobra, any size back bend, whatever you like, and back up to downward facing dog. From downward facing dog this time, take a nice little walk with your feet towards your hands. You might use it to help you stretch the calves, check in with your feet, check in with your ankles, relax your head. We'll meet in a forward fold. Once you're in a forward fold, your hands might not even be on the floor. You might just be grabbing opposite elbows. You might not even get there. And see, how do you feel the weight distribute on the feet? The feet are a relatively small part of the body, you know, proportionally speaking. And once we are standing, all of our weight just goes onto the feet. They're perfectly architectured so that they can support and distribute the entire weight of the body and bring it to the ground. So just see what they feel like for a moment. Maybe give them a little thanks, and then shake off your head. No, and yes, and take a moment to roll your spine up, stacking from underneath. Right, roll the spine up one vertebra at a time. You're stacking one layer on top of the next. And then from here, you can let your head drop back down. Bend your knees as much as you need to. It's not so much about the hamstrings at this point. And just let yourself pour your weight forward again, taking it a little bit off of your legs, you might notice, and into your head and your hands. And then we'll try a flat back. And the way that I'd like you to try the flat back is by adding weight into the feet and pushing into the feet and letting the push of the feet travel through your legs all the way to your hips, all the way to your spine and to your back, into a flat back. I don't care what you do with your hands. You can move them or not. What I would like you to notice is how little work can you apply to your back and how much work can you do from your legs to lift your spine. Of course your back is working, right? But how much can you involve your legs? And then relax everything down, maybe give it a little shake, and then we'll swan dive all the way up. So coming through a flat back from the push of your feet. You can let your arms open out to the side if that helps, and then keep pushing with the feet to dive the head up. Maybe lift the arms up towards the seating, and we'll come into mountain pose. And take a moment, standing in mountain pose, feet together or feet hip width apart, your choice, whatever makes you feel more in contact with the ground, more open to have a dialogue with the floor. We'll take 3 rounds of Surya Namaskar A, nice and easy. I'm gonna talk you through. As always, you can do whatever you want, especially since this is a recording that you're watching. But if you want to follow, feel free to follow, so you don't have to worry about getting creative or remembering the sequence, right? This is another good moment where you can take a brain break and kind of let things just shake out. Or if you want, you keep playing with this idea of moving from the pushing to the ground, of whatever goes underneath, whatever is below at that moment, that can potentially create movement above. So it doesn't necessarily even have to be in the ground. It could be the underneath layer of your body, even in plank pose, for example. How does the underneath layer of your body support the above layer, right? So up to you, if you want to think or not think. Whenever you're ready, take a breath in with your arms up, maybe they lift from the feet. And exhale to fold forward, take your fingers to the floor, bending the knees as much as you want to or need to. Inhale, push from the feet, find your half lift or flat back. And exhale, plant your hands down, step back into plank and lower down, knees down or not. Through chaturanga maybe all the way down to the floor, maybe knees, chest, chin. Upward facing dog or cobra, some sort of back bend that you like better. And then we'll meet in downward facing dog. In downward facing dog, you have about 3 breaths. You also could be in child's pose. You could be in dolphin. You could be in handstand. Could be any of those variations, and see how much work is happening in your head, neck, and spine, and can it not? Right? Can they be relatively quiet? Whenever you're ready, bend the knees between your hands, take a hop or take a walk. Bring your feet towards your hands. Inhale for your half lift or flat back. Exhale, fold forward, taking the fingers back down to the floor. Press down through the feet. Inhale, reverse. Swan dive, take it all the way up. Exhale, arms by your sides. Take a moment to find as neutral a shape as possible, whatever that means, the mountain pose. And then inhale, lift the arms up, maybe look up. Exhale, fold forward, take your fingers down to the floor. Inhale, look forward for your half lift. And exhale, hop or walk to your plank position. Take a vinyasa of your choice. Back in downward facing dog or child's pose or dolphin, take a few breaths. Whenever you're ready, bend the knees between your hands, take a hop or a walk. Bringing your feet towards your hands. Inhale for your half lift. Exhale to fold. Inhale to reverse your swan dive. Come all the way up. Exhale, arms down by your sides. Take a breath to find the ground. Last round, if you're moving with me, inhale to lift the arms up. Exhale to fold forward and take your fingers down to the floor. Inhale to look forward into your half lift. Exhale, hop or walk, and take your flow. And downward facing dog for a few breaths. Whenever you're ready, bend the knees, look between your hands, take a hop or take a walk. Feet towards the hands. Inhale for your half lift. Exhale, refold. Inhale to reverse your swan dive, take it all the way up. Exhale, mountain pose. Take a moment to pause, take a moment to center, take a moment to find the ground. Whatever that sound or looks like to you, to give yourself a moment to pause, to start the process of digesting what's happened until now before we move on to the next thing. Whenever you're ready, take a chair pose. Bend the knees. Right? And then see if your feet pushing into the ground can help you lift the arms and find support in the chest. So this is one of those examples, right? The most immediate thing, if you push your feet into the ground, is that your knees will straighten. But you can choose to not have the knees straightened, so that force will pass through your knees, through your hips, all the way into your spine, maybe all the way into your arms. Take one more breath wherever you are, and as you breathe out, fold it forward, taking your fingers down to the floor. Inhale for your half lift. Exhale to hop or step back. Take a vinyasa if you'd like it. Skip it if you've had enough for now, forever, or for the day. And then we'll meet in downward facing dog. From downward facing dog, you'll shift your weight onto your left foot and push onto your left foot to help you lift your right leg up, perhaps this time specifically opening the hip so that the push help you rotate the pelvis towards the right. Take a bend in your right knee. Take a breath in, and on your breath out, let your knee swing into gravity to step the foot forward between your hands. Take your back heel down and see if there is a way that you can come up into warrior two with the help of your feet, so that the feet help you lighten up the torso as you come up into your warrior two. And then let your arms settle. Adjust your feet if you need to. As always, find the position that you need to find. A little wider, a little shorter. Gaze past your right fingertips if you want. Right? And then see where the work is. Can you release your weight a little bit more and push a little bit more where you need to push, so that you can find support, so that your shoulders, your spine, your head and neck are relatively quiet. Take a breath in, straighten the front knee, reach your right arm up towards the ceiling, and then lean forward with the torso, but keep pushing with your right foot down. So I'm not entirely collapsing on it, but the push of my right foot will help me maybe open the hips and be a little bit more controlled as I take my right hand down, left arm up into a triangle pose. Once you're there, if you want to try it, you don't have to. This is a little brutal, but if you want to try it, engage your legs even more so that you can lift your right arm off the floor, right? And take it next to your ear. Your torso might lift up a little bit. Now it's just really your legs supporting the weight of your torso. Your left arm can come and line up next to the ear as well, make it even harder. Take a breath in. And as you breathe out, if you're lifted, take your right hand back down. Circle your left arm all the way overhead to stretch your left side body. Pivot your right toes in as you find a wide-legged forward fold. So your hands will come in the middle and you're facing the left edge of your mat, right? Once you're there, take a moment to relax your head down. If you would like to, you can try a little bit of an undulation of your spine that comes from your feet pushing into the ground, as if you're pushing down to try to take a little half lift, but then kind of release the push quicker than anything even happens. Take one more full breath in, full breath out, wherever you are. Finish up whatever it is that you're doing. And then on the next inhale, we'll find a half lift. Turn over towards your left toes. Walk towards a lunge towards the left foot. So you face the back edge of your mat. And right hand stays down. Take a twist. How can you use your right hand to help you? Same as you're using your leg to help you rotate your pelvis, you're not using your right arm to help you rotate your ribs. Take a breath or two here, right? And then from here, you'll just come into a side plank on your right hand. So you're gonna come onto the outer edge of your right foot, stack your left foot over the right, or you might have it staggered in front if that's a better option. You might have the foot on the floor if that's a better option, right? So that you can find some support from underneath, whatever your underneath layer is, to help you support the layer that's above. Take 2 more breaths in whatever variation of side plank you're in. And then you reach the left arm next to your ear. Spiral yourself down into a plank pose. Take a vinyasa if you want. Skip it if you've had enough. We'll meet in downward facing dog and we'll come back doing the second side. So once you're in downward facing dog, organize your space if you need to organize your space. Shift your weight onto your right foot. Let your left leg float up. Let the push of your right foot help you open the hips and take a bend in your left knee. So it's definitely a little bit of a twisty downward dog or a 3-legged dog shape. Feeling the support of your right leg. This is what you just used for triangle pose as well. So maybe it's a little bit more clear now. And then on an exhale, you take your left knee and let it swing forward to help you step the foot between your hands. Take your back heel down. Take this first one really slow. We're gonna repeat it and see what happens. If you shift your weight from your hands into your feet, that will be step 1. And then your feet pushing down can lift your torso up. And once you're up in your warrior 2, get organized, organize your feet, adjust your outfit. I shouldn't do that, but whatever. And see where there's work that's not necessary. And yes, we are loading the legs quite a bit, right? That's part of what the warriors, lunges, standing poses do, right? So see where you're cheating yourself, where you're using other parts of your body that might not actually even be helping, right? Your back, your neck, your shoulders, those other above layers that are not really helping, right? Your legs will get tired and that will be it. And then straighten your left leg, reach your left arm up, right? And keep the push of your left leg. As you start to tilt over your left leg, keep that push so that your descent is really, really slow and controlled until you take your left hand down. It could be to your leg, could be to a block, could be to the floor, whatever your triangle pose looks like. Assess your triangle pose first. Where can you use your legs a little bit more to help you support the torso, the arms, the spine, maybe even the rotation of the head? And then if you have it in you, if you're interested, shift the weight from your left hand, wherever it is, into your feet so that you can lift your left arm, take it next to your ear. Take a few breaths there. If you have it in you, it's a lot of work. And then maybe your right arm comes next to your ear. Your torso might be a little bit more lifted than it was before. It might not be quite as parallel to the ground. That's pretty common. And check in with your left knee. For some of us that hyperextend, this is going to put a lot of strain on the knee. So if it's too much for you, feel free to bend the knee a little bit, right? Or feel free to put your left hand back down. We'll take one more breath wherever you are, and then if your arms are lifted, you're going to slowly go back to your triangle shape. Reach your right arm, next to your ear, stretch your right side body, and then come into your wide-legged forward fold. This time, heel toe your feet to come to a squat. So your feet might be turned out quite a bit. They might be a little wider, a little bit closer together, depending on what your squat requires. I would like your heels to be on the floor, if that is at all possible. For some of us, it might not be. And then you can do it on your toes. You just want to have your hands on the floor to help you balance, so you don't have to worry about that, right? And just kind of figure it out. Once you're here, see if you can let your feet soften and flatten, and let your pelvic floor soften and flatten, those two underneath layers. And then see if you can tone your feet. They might be pushing into the ground a little bit. That might affect your hips and your spine. And then find your pelvic floor. It's another underneath layer. It doesn't have anything to push onto. But can you find tone in your pelvic floor so that your spine feels a little bit more support? Maybe yes, maybe no. And then let yourself flop down again. Whenever you're ready, reorganize your legs, take your time, Coming back to a wide-legged forward fold, right? From your wide-legged forward fold, we walk towards the right foot, finding a lunge over the right leg. And from there, your left hand will stay down, your feet are nice and solid, and you open your right arm up towards the ceiling to come into a twist, allowing the left hand on the floor to help you rotate the ribs. Same as earlier, we were rotating the pelvis using the bottom leg. Take one more breath in your twist, and then we'll come to our side plank on the left hand, coming onto the outer edge of your left foot, right arm up towards the ceiling. Organize your right foot however you want, might be just in front, might be knee bent quite far forward in front, whatever you need to do so that you can create support from the underneath layers. And if one hand and the edge of one foot are not enough as underneath layers directly on the ground, so be it. Use your other foot, use your left knee, use what you need to use so that you can support yourself. And then reach your right arm overhead and spin your way down into plank position. Take a vinyasa if you want it. Skip it if you want. We'll take a moment in child's pose. If child's pose is not a good place for you to rest, find a place that is comfortable for you to rest. Some people's knees are not super happy in child's pose. If that is you, feel free to lay down onto your belly, or feel free to sit, or whatever kind of position it is. You can give yourself a moment to find the ground. We have one more set of standing sequence where, as it often happens in my classes, we'll add some balancing and some more experimental things. So this is the basic structure and you have it. You can always come back to this. If you want to play, feel free to play. If you need to reground yourself, feel free to take a break. Maybe standing, maybe laying down, maybe sitting, so that you can reground yourself. Today, we're looking for the ground. So I think that the poses and the positions are secondary to our curiosity to constantly ground ourselves and orient downward towards the floor. If that's an interesting question for you to have, just keep it in the forefront of your mind. If you want to work in a different way, you work in a different way. Whenever you're ready, we'll make our way back up into downward facing dog. In downward facing dog, we'll lift the right leg up by pushing your left foot down, opening the hips, maybe take a bend in the knee again. We'll take just one breath here because we've been here before, and then your right knee is going to swing forward, come to step between the hands. Take your back heel down, and this time just open into side angle. You could put your right forearm on the thigh, in which case you have kind of a double underneath layers. There's a right foot and then there is a right elbow, and both of them will help you spin your chest open. You can take a moment here, make yourself comfortable, right? You can have your hand down on the floor if you want, which makes it a little bit harder. I feel like the more you get that hip into flexion, the harder it is to have that conversation between the leg and the torso. That might just be me. And then whenever you're ready, press your right foot down, come all the way up into a reverse triangle. Right arm floating up towards the ceiling. From here, we'll come into Ardha Chandrasana, half moon. You might want to bend your right knee. I'm gonna hop my foot back a little. You're gonna bend your right knee if you want. Reach your right hand forward so that you can kind of propel yourself. Have your right hand on the floor so that you can use both, or block, so that you can use both your hand and your foot to help you spin your body open, right? It's kind of like triangle pose. And then see what you can do with your right leg to help you float your left leg up a little bit higher, especially if you find yourself with your leg kind of drooping below your hip, which can be a really nice stretch actually. But see if you can float it up, and the floating of the leg might affect your spine. Notice if that is the case. Take a deep breath in and a deep breath out. And then as you exhale, we'll come into a forward fold. So you're just going to take your left hand down, bend your standing knee if you need to, and step your left foot next to the right. Take a moment in your forward fold to shake off your head.
Bend the knees, roll your spine up.
And come to stand. And then from here, you shift your weight onto your right leg. Let's do the same leg. Shift your weight onto your right leg. Push your right foot down so much that you get to lift your left leg up. If your left leg is bent, it's a little bit easier, it's less weight, right? If you would like to try, you can put your hands on your hips so you can have them out to the side. What you need to do, your right foot can push down so that your left leg lifts up straight. And then you weigh down your left hip and hip socket to help you lighten up the foot. So the foot can lift up a little bit higher, maybe, right? Maybe not. Weigh down your left hip, weigh down your left sit bone. See if you can create a seesaw action between the hip and the foot. Take one more breath. And then swing your left leg back down, step into a lunge, right? Forearm on your left thigh, pivot yourself back, open into your side angle pose. Take a breath in and a breath out. And then from here, come into your wide-legged forward fold, pivoting the toes towards the left edge of your mat. This time you can take a forward fold, you can take a squat like we did before, or you can take a crow, right? If you want to take a crow, you're going to heel toe your feet closer together, lower your hips so you can kind of nudge your knees up towards your armpits, excuse me, couldn't think of the word. And I'm turning sideways just so you can maybe see a little bit better. And then from here we start to shift the weight forward. One layer, underneath layer is the hands. Other underneath layers is the arms, where your knees are pushing down. So see if you can focus on those two, right? To help you lift the feet, to help you support the head, to help you lift your hips and the pelvis. If you're doing the variation of crow where you're hugging your arms, this might be a little bit harder to find, but it's still possible. It's the same principle of force. Whenever you've had enough, make your way back down. We're gonna meet in our wide-legged forward fold. You can take a moment to shake off your head, shake off your arms, shake off your shoulders. And then take a little half lift. Pivot around towards your left foot, towards the back edge of your mat. And this time you take a side plank if you want, you take a break if you want. If you want, you're gonna come into your side plank, but with your left foot in your left hand or floating up, right? So you're also gonna use your underneath side to help you float up your above side, same as you were doing on the floor earlier. You don't have to grab the foot, the leg doesn't have to be straight. I don't really care what it looks like. It's the underneath layer that's supporting the lift and movement of the uppermost layer. And then you take your left foot, back forward into your lunge whenever you're ready. Step your right foot to meet it. You're in a forward fold, we're just gonna skip the vinyasa. Actually, we have to do it anyway. So just go back to downward facing dog. Sorry, because we're gonna start from there. I almost forgot one piece. From downward facing dog, last little bit of standing stuff. Left leg goes up, right foot pushes down, open the hips, maybe take a bend in the knee. Yeah. And then left knee gives into gravity, takes maybe a little swing to come into your lunge. And then find your layers to come into side angle pose. I'm using the forearm on the thigh because it helps me really find those two layers of support. You can also have your hand on the floor, right? Whatever works. Your right arm can go up towards the ceiling if next to the ear kind of burdens the shoulder too much. Maybe that's not what you want to worry about today. And then you can also use that left leg to help you spin your pelvis and your ribs open a little bit more towards the ceiling. Have a few more breaths. Not that many. Maybe 3. In your side angle pose, whatever variation you're taking, and you can change variation if you want. And then at some point, press down into your left foot, reverse triangle. Dive all the way up and all the way back, left arm towards the ceiling. We're coming to Ardha Chandrasana, half moon. If you want to hop your front foot back a little bit, I just don't have space. But you're going to bend your left knee so that you can reach your left hand in front of it. As you shift your weight on your left foot, also place your left hand on the floor or on a block so that you can use both your foot and your hand to help you spin open into Ardha Chandrasana. If you find your leg droopy, notice how that affects the back too. Right? And see if you can find a little bit more of a push. Whoops, a push through the leg to help you float your right leg up, and that might help you float your spine a little bit more. So the torso might even get a little bit lighter. Maybe not. Okay, take a couple more breaths in your half moon, whatever variation you're taking. And then we'll come to a forward fold towards the back of your mat. Right hand can come down, maybe you bend your left knee, readjust your feet so you're standing parallel in a forward fold, where you might want to shake off your head. No. Yes. Before you roll your spine up to come to stand. Once you're up standing, find a good spot on your floor. And then shift your weight onto your left foot. Let your left foot push down so that it lifts your right leg up. You might already start to find that hinge or your right hip gets heavier. Right sit bone and right hip socket get a little bit heavier so that you can hinge your leg up. If you want to work a little bit harder, you hinge your leg straight. If you want to work a little less and maybe have a better clear feeling of the hinging and of the pushing and all of that stuff, then you keep your right knee bent. Sometimes we work for more stress, sometimes we work for more clarity, and it is possible that decreasing the stress can increase the clarity. So just see what you're working with. And for today, take one more breath. And then slowly swing the leg back to come into a lunge. Place left forearm on left thigh so we can spin the body back, open into our side angle just for a breath. Maybe you stretch your right hip a little bit. And then shift forward into the wide-legged forward fold. And now you have all of the options that we did before: forward fold, squat, crow. Or if you would like to, you take a headstand. If tripod, or actually any headstand, if it's part of your practice. What I would like you to do is the same process of shifting the weight onto your basis of support and using your hands to push down to help you lift your legs up, and using your head pushing down to help you lift your legs up. Right? So the legs are going to be really heavy if you don't have support from underneath. You can come up in any way you want. You can take a wall if you want to do that. This is a recording, so you can totally pause and join back in, or skip the next thing. It doesn't really matter. You're on your own whenever you've had enough. If you are in your headstand, make your way back down into your forward fold, and I invite you to find a way to lift your head off the floor and give it a little shake. Sometimes getting your feet a little narrow or putting your hands on the floor can be helpful. So you give your neck a little bit of a shake off. Whenever you're ready, walk your way around towards the right foot to find our lunge, and from there to our balancey side plank. Right? So maybe you have your right foot in your hand, which can be helpful to get started. Maybe not. Maybe they just float up. Right? Can the right arm and right leg be relatively free to move? Right? If you move them a lot, you're going to fall. But because you have support coming from the underneath layer of your body, right? It doesn't really matter what's happening to the top, what it looks like. You can do a regular side plank if you want, and then take your right foot and float it forward, oof, back into your lunge. And this time, we're gonna step the left foot forward to meet the right in a forward fold. And this time I actually meant it, because from here, nice and easy, You're gonna just bend your knees and come down to the floor, right? And to the back. Roll your way back down. Take a moment on your back to pause. Whew. All of those balances might have been a lot, or maybe it was easy. Maybe talking through side plank always leaves me a little breathless. So excuse my voice if I'm a little, breathing a little hard. Whenever you're ready, you might take a couple of knee drops. You might give yourself a little wiggle or a pause. We're gonna take bridge, very, very simple back bend. If you want to take a different back bend, of course, and as always, you're welcome to do so. If you're okay with bridge, your feet are about parallel and about hip width apart. Your arms can come by your sides. And it's the push of the feet. It doesn't have to be like this. It could be that it's the tail that leads the pelvis up. It could be that it's a crunch that leads the pelvis up, right? All of those things are correct. They're options. Another option is that your feet push down, right? So that your pelvis lifts up. And that might create a different engagement in the legs, a different engagement in the glutes. If you're up into your bridge and you would like to tuck your shoulder blades under, hide your arms under your body until you can interlace your fingers and give your shoulders a little bit of this stretch. Soften the neck and the throat. You don't have to tuck your chin down towards your chest. Your chest can move up and your feet can push down. Notice if your feet are pushing forward, which could be really nice because it creates more pressure on the shoulders if you like that. If your feet are pushing straight down, you'll have more engagement in the hamstrings and glutes, maybe a little bit less back bend. And then slowly, make your way back down whenever you're ready, and take a little knee drop if you want it, or just a little wiggle from side to side. And then take one more back bend, and then a couple of yin poses to finish. So we'll hold them for a little bit longer, or yin-like. One might not stay the entire 5 minutes. I mean, you can if you want. So take another back bend of your choice. I'm gonna go for a wheel. You can take another bridge, you can stay where you are, you can flip over, take any back bend you like. If you're going for a wheel, same principle. You're gonna use your feet and you're gonna use your hands. You can even start pushing with the hands, which is a little bit more, I think, harder to find. Push with the hands, see if you can keep your elbows from flipping out to the side, because if they slide out to the side, it's gonna be harder to keep your hands in contact with the ground. And then see if you can lift yourself up from there. Once you're in your bridge, or wheel, or back bend of your choice, give yourself a few breaths. Feeling the underneath layers helping you lift and support the layers up off. And then slowly, whenever you've had enough, make your way back down and onto the ground. And this time you might even hug your knees in towards your chest. Give yourself a moment to pause. If you're not here yet, take your time. There's no rush whatsoever. We're gonna take supine twists for a couple of minutes on each side. Actually, twist, Janusirsasana, twist. Okay? And Shavasana. So that's the plan. If you wanna stick with me, stick with me. If you wanna go off on your own, feel free to go off on your own. If you are with me, take the knees and drop them off towards the right. Just so you go on the same side of the twist. And you twist. Anywhere you should twist you like. We're gonna hold for a couple of minutes. I will admit I don't have a time checker. I don't have a clock. I don't have a watch. on hand, so I'm just gonna wing it. So hopefully I'll maintain the times reasonably even on the two sides, and you can always be on your own time. I'm gonna go a little quiet. I'm still here. This is not even a live thing, so it's probably not your Wi-Fi dropping or mine. Last few seconds on this side. Then whenever you're ready, if you want to try a funny transition with me, you're going to roll onto your right side and then stretch your left leg, the top leg, stretch it out long towards the front of your mat, and let the weight of your leg and the help of your hands help you come up to sit. You'll be facing the side of your mat, right? And then from here, we'll readjust for Janushirshasana. If you want to square off your hips towards the front, you're welcome to do so. If you like to keep them a little bit more open, go for that. Whenever you're ready, we'll fold forward. We'll keep this also about a couple of minutes in a quiet space if traffic allows for that. And I'm talking about outside traffic, not necessarily mental traffic, so that too could be an issue. About 1 more minute.
Some last few seconds here. And if you would like to, we're going to go back onto our back. If you would like to do a funny transition, you can maybe keep your head pretty heavy and kind of walk your way towards your right leg and over, and kind of let your head, as if you're trying to get into bed, and you just let your head guide you back down to the floor. And once you get to the floor, make your way onto your back. You might take a moment to reorganize on your mat and in your space and so on and so forth, and in your body, and then take your knees over towards the left. If you are going with me, we're going to stay here for about 2 minutes. If you're on your own, be on your own. I hope you had a good time and still are having a good time. About 1 minute left. Last few seconds on this side. And then if you would like to do the funny transition, you're gonna roll over onto your left side. Take your top leg, which would be your right, and reach it long. Imagine your foot and your leg are getting heavier and heavier so that they kind of drag your torso up, and you can use your hand to help a little bit, but might not need a lot of help. And then organize yourself in your space and on your mat and in your body for Janushirshasana for a couple of minutes. Again, you might have your hips more or less squared towards the front of the mat. More squared is a little bit less stress for the sacroiliac joints. The hips are a little bit more open. Sometimes there is some tension in the back of the pelvis. Just do what your body needs to do. About a minute left on this side. And then slowly from here, whenever you're ready, wherever you are, whatever here is, make our way to a comfortable final resting position. It could be on any surface of your body, in any kind of position, like straight or bent. Whatever serves you best. Prioritizing comfort, and I'm gonna keep us about 2 more minutes here. You're more than welcome to turn the video off and rest as long as you want. About 1 more minute if you would like to close with me. And then if you would like to close with me, take a moment to bring your attention back to the body from wherever it traveled, back to your sense of gravity, back to the ground. Give yourself a moment to wiggle or stretch or roll around, and eventually, if you want, make your way up to find a seat. Any comfortable seat where you can kind of go back to the beginning, to
You're noticing if and how you can layer yourself, and what does it feel like to consider what is above and what is below. So that the support of what's below comes before the curiosity, movement, change, transformation of what is above, no matter what's what. If you'd like to, take the palms of your hands to your heart center in gratitude to all the teachers and all the students who've gone before, and the greatest teacher of all, which is that within ourselves.